today we have the one and only Diana Mendez. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
So
Nice to see you too. It's always nice to see you now.
now, yeah, let's talk about that. I think maybe a few people know this story about us. That I think you told me then, maybe what, a year later?
You just were my favorite. That was it.
You did tell me about a year later, maybe
Yeah.
more.
Maybe a
You
little
told me
bit
when we
after.
joined Realty Masters.
Yeah.
You told me the story.
Yeah.
All along, I thought we were cool.
I mean, we were cool. You just weren't my favorite. I don't know how to tell you.
She straight told me, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't like you.
Yeah. I didn't care for you.
You didn't
Is what
care
I
for me.
said. Yeah. I didn't care for you.
Uh,
You were always. You were always. I felt like I was. Siempre me estaba regañando. Like every time. Like you were.
how?
Like not directly, but like at the meetings or whatever. Yeah. Like.
I'm like, how? I never.
No, like at the meetings and stuff. And then, before we parted ways from our previous place,
Yeah.
we had a conversation, and that's when I was like, oh, damn. Like, all right, maybe I'll work with this guy. Like, he seems really cool or whatever. Remember, we had a conversation.
I sent you a message.
Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
had a conversation in your office.
Yes.
Yeah. And we,
Yeah,
we started
you're right,
talking
you're
about
right.
death, and we started talking about my
It became more personal.
Yes, it became a little more personal on
Yeah.
an aspect, and we talked a little bit about business and
Very
and then
little bit
after
about
that-
business.
a little bit about business. You were telling me like your ideas
Yeah.
of what you think I should handle, because, of course, it's not my only job. I work 2 jobs, so
You do.
yeah. So you kind of gave me a strategy to kind of maneuver through the following year, and then you vanished. You were gone.
I think we vanished.
Yeah. Yeah.
We both did. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, no, it was overall positive. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always gonna take. You never hear me talk about that, but I always wish people the best, and you learn. I
No,
think
so
that's the
do
best thing
I.
that happened to us is we learn.
Yeah.
Great part of my. I always say it's a good part of my history. I'm never gonna go back and say, oh my God, you learn from things.
I agree.
However, I know when. Fast forward, you then told me that you told me that, and then you told me that I don't know if it was cocky, because I'm like, how in the
I don't
world
know.
am I that
I don't
or
think
come off like that?
I don't think it was cocky. I don't think I looked at you as cocky. But I will tell you this, like going back where I say you vanished, you kind of left me with a cliffhanger. Kind of like one of those people that you're getting to know and you want to know more about them because you
okay.
think they're going to add value to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where I kind of was always like intrigued, like, because every time we did have a conversation, most of our conversations were through the phone. And when I did call you, it was almost like you gave me that little extra, like, oh, you know what? This guy believes I can do this. Let me see how far I can take it.
Mhm.
And then I go and get, like, my
Yeah.
listings and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, so you did add a lot of positive previously, but you did leave me with a cliffhanger. Like, let me see what else I can do with
Like
it.
the what
you know?
if.
Yeah.
I think I had a conversation with you once on a listing. I don't know if you were I don't know if you were here. I remember because I was running.
Oh,
And then you called me about, obviously we're talking about concessions now,
yeah.
commission. And you asked me all these questions and I said, just do it. I know because I'm one, and I know there's many people out there in this world, but I always remember certain conversations or things that happen and I know where I'm at.
Yes.
That conversation with you, I had it because I was running 5 miles that day. I still remember because I just went on running and you called me. You happened to call me.
I feel like this is just an excuse for you to talk about running.
It could be.
Yeah.
And I don't care. But I was running. I remember that day because I rarely I run south. I usually run north.
Okay.
And you called me right when I was jumping on the river and I just happened to take, like, well, I'm just going this way. And we talked about commission. And then you text me about 2 hours later, got it,
Yeah.
6%.
Yeah.
And I said, there you go. Now double dip it.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
Um,
I hadn't gone on a listing appointment in like over a year.
and you
it
said
was
you were nervous.
and I was nervous, and I said, reassure me. I don't know why I feel this way. Like, and I think I just called kind of to vent. Like, I don't know what's going on with me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And this is not something you could just call any of your buddies and they're gonna like pump you up.
Yeah.
Because you need to know the industry. And I didn't know what was happening to me. And at that time, you didn't even say anything like out of the ordinary. Anything that was like, I don't know. You didn't say
I
anything.
know what I
That,
said.
yeah, it
And
wasn't. But it wasn't like,
no, because I always say it's like playing a game.
yeah,
Um, stick to the basics. Stick to the
yes,
plan. Um, I mean, I've heard this from many other people. I mean, I've never played a big professional game, right?
yeah,
But don't let the noise distract you.
yes.
And that's what we talked about that
That's
day.
exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Don't
said,
let the noise distract you. And
I
was
said,
like,
don't focus on everything else. Just focus on what you're good at,
yeah,
and go back to the main reasons why you got this appointment.
yeah,
Then it became personal
yeah,
because then I started asking you questions about your personal life, and then that added to how you felt going on this appointment.
yeah,
And then we talked a lot about personal. It became more personal. It became about the business.
yeah,
And I know because on my way back, as you're like, okay, well, that's all I needed you for.
I did. I said, okay, bye.
Okay, yeah. And I remember because on the way back, I'm like, well, thank you, because I also just needed someone to talk to. And I remember
Yeah.
I ran 5 miles that day. But there's conversations that I always remember,
Yeah,
who I spoke to, what I said, and more importantly, where you're at. It's like
Yeah.
those stages in life. You know, where, like when people ask you, do you remember 9/11?
yeah,
If you lived through it. Like I remember where I was at. I just happen to have those memories of people.
yeah,
But we linked up. I sent you a message
you did.
through Instagram, and
You
nothing to do with real estate.
No, it wasn't. I remember.
And we started
Yeah,
chatting, right?
yeah. You sent
Um,
me a message, nothing to do with real estate. It was a YouTube song, and you said, "Listen to this. I think it's a good song to listen to." And I can't remember the name of the song,
It's a
but I have it
Hillsong.
pinned. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I listened to it, and it's kind of what I needed at that very moment. And I remember, it's like you said, you always remember where you're at,
Yeah.
right? I was sitting at my desk. I was crying at my home office. I was crying. I had my head down, and I just didn't know what the future had in store for me. Like, I went from being this top producing agent to I can't even get myself to pick up the phone to make a phone call, to cold call, to do anything. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do it. And it just like I shut down. Like I felt like the weight of my dad passing after the year hit, completely my body just kind of said, "Oh, you
That's it.
survived the first year, which is going to be the hardest year of your life." And it wasn't.
It was the
Little did I
second.
know, the second year was
Yeah.
going to be the hardest year of my life, but because that's when the noise stopped.
Mm-hmm.
People stopped coming around. People stopped calling. People, you're not as busy. My house was now empty, and
It's like the now what?
yeah. And now what? And I used to have all this real estate, but then the market shifted too.
Correct.
So everything shifted at this time.
You're
and
right. The market did
Yeah, the
shift.
market shifted
you're right.
completely. The interest rates started going up.
Mhm.
People weren't selling. Like buyers were out there, but they couldn't buy. They were getting outbidded.
They started going from being all in to now being on the fence.
Exactly.
Like, should we wait?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I
Yeah.
remember that.
So the market took a shift. My life took a shift. Everything shifted. And you happen to send me this, and I look for signs like that. So I always kind of kept it in the back of my
It's
head.
a song called, I'll get it right now. It's still one of, I could tell you what song it is because you're going to
And
be
I wish I remembered because, to be honest, I have it pinned. And on my hard days, I play it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's called, I'll tell you right now because I want to make sure we get this. Sinking Deep.
I believe that's the
Sinking
one.
deep.
Yeah.
Sinking, sink, like you're sinking in
Yeah.
deep. I remember seeing your story.
Yeah, there was something I posted.
You posted something, and I'm like, well, it's one of those songs that helps me, right? And
Yeah.
I remember sending it to her, just here, listen to the lyrics. And if you listen to the lyrics, they're very, plus the way they sing it, it's a live performance on Hillsong.
Yes.
You guys, it's praise and worship, by the way.
Yeah.
It starts very soft, and then it builds. You could hear the audience into it.
Yeah.
And if you watch the YouTube, you could see the audience, right?
Well, that's exactly what I pictured. Like, I was like, I can't remember the name of it, but I picture
the audience.
Yeah. Because I watch it on YouTube. You know, that's where I have it pinned. But yeah, see, you think I don't like you, but
Then you well, later on you told me the truth. It's like, you know what, you're actually a nice guy.
Yeah,
like
I'm
you're in the
like, you know
mafia.
what,
You're a nice guy. Let's not take him out in the back.
you know what, I actually kind of like you.
Yeah, I knew you stuck around for a reason.
Yeah, like there's something about you. So
And then we had
there's a reason I didn't delete you off my Instagram.
yeah, there you go. All the social media blockers.
See, everybody thinks I just pick on them. I pick on everybody.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, you do.
If I don't pick on you, I don't like you.
The crazy thing about it is that we ended up having a conversation afterwards, and the conversations were never about real estate. It never was a real estate. It was always personal about your father,
Yeah.
about how you were going through things. And I remember telling you this. I'm like, well, at least you enjoyed your father.
Yeah.
And then you
did
were
tell me
like,
that.
I remember you kind of stood quiet, like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm looking at the opposite way. I enjoyed my father for maybe 9 years
Yeah.
because he was in and out of the hospital after I was 7. And I think it gave you a perspective in life.
Yeah.
And so I'm over here like, dude, at least you play catch, right? And then you were like, well, yeah, I did. I said, well, at least you enjoyed a Dodger game when you were older. I remember going to 1 or 2 with my father. That's how I became a Dodger fan.
Yeah.
And through the Fernando Valenzuela
Mm-hmm.
era, I remember going to watch him play because my dad was like, wow, Valenzuela pitches tonight. I don't remember the year because I'll be lying, but it must have been in the 85 season, somewhere around there because, yeah, because my father, obviously, he started getting sick and he died in 87, I believe, or 89. I'm trying to go back.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when we started talking and having conversations. It was more about
The
personal.
Dodgers and
It was about the Dodgers.
our dads, pretty
our
much.
fathers, yeah. And we would just talk about that.
Yeah.
In retrospect, maybe people thought we talked about real estate, and we never did.
No.
We never did. We were always talking about our past and how we were actually very similar,
Yeah.
which is probably why I don't like you either. I'm just kidding. You were always such a good person. And then
I didn't even flinch when you said that.
nah, not at all. I should zoom in on her when I said that. Fast forward,
I ran into you and Steph at the Dodger game, remember? Yeah.
you did.
And we stayed up there talking. And the whole time we talked about baseball.
Yes.
Yeah.
We ended up talking about baseball.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time because we talked about baseball that day, and I think I sent you some tickets once.
Well, we had a conversation also about my nephew, how he was.
Yeah, but I just sent them to you like, hey, would you like to go on? And you
Yeah.
said, thank you. There's a story behind that too, but
It was playoff tickets.
yeah.
I wasn't even here yet.
No, you
I
weren't.
wasn't over here yet.
No, you weren't. You weren't with us. But I think from the outside looking in, maybe someone thought I gave him to you because for other reasons
Yeah.
within the industry, period, right?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, we know what he did. We know why he did that.
Yeah.
I didn't. We couldn't make it, and I remember we had something else. We already knew.
Yeah.
And Steph actually brought it up, and it's like, well, why don't you give him to Diana because I know she's a Dodger fan, and I'm like, oh yeah, we had talked about it.
I was telling you I was buying tickets for my nephew.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as we're handling our account,
Yeah.
I brought like, well, I got these tickets, we're not gonna be able to make it, and then she brought it up another ticket, so I had her in mind.
Yeah.
So then that's when I just
Yeah.
enjoy the game, and I think you took your nephew.
No, he was disrespectful and I didn't take him. So I taught him a lesson. It was a really hard
That's right.
lesson.
Who did you go with?
I took one of my friends. Yeah, I took one of my friends. But you know why I took her?
Why?
Because I knew that if my nephew apologized, she's the only person I could have told, hey, you're not going. He apologized. And she knew that. She was a good sport about it. So, so he apologized.
Those are
she was
friends,
taking
guys.
the
Those are
tickets.
friends.
Yeah.
Those are good friends.
Yeah.
You joined. We ended up talking, and then we filmed something. Was it a year ago?
It was a year ago. It was on my dad's birthday.
A year ago. Your
Yeah,
dad's birthday just passed.
December 21st. Yeah.
Yes, your dad's birthday just passed. Um, did we film it on his birthday?
Yes.
That's right, we did.
I would have stayed home, and I even said it on that.
Yeah.
And I said I would have stayed home, but he probably would have wanted me to be out
With
here.
the person you
Yeah.
didn't like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Go with that guy.
Yeah.
That day you said next year Diana's coming back,
You asked me what can we expect from Diana.
and you said, "I'm back."
You said there's two things to look out for next year:
Mm-hmm. Where were they?
the Dodgers and Diana. Because
And they-
everybody underestimated the Dodgers.
I never underestimated you, because then we're like, "Oh,
So
the
you
Dodgers."
underestimated the Dodgers?
Well, you were like, can they? Because it's like you want them to win. We're big Dodger fans.
Yeah.
I knew I could count on you, because we had a conversation prior to that. I'm like, I know you're back. The Dodgers, what's out of our control?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I meant by it. That's, as fans, we believe in them, but we're not playing.
Yeah.
I'm not Freeman, Mookie Betts. We're not them.
Yeah.
We're just fans, and obviously we're not the coach. So when you said that, and you said to me, well, I know I'm gonna be here. Can the Dodgers pull through? And then we laughed. I'm like, watch them win, because we talked about that off camera.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Both the Dodgers and I performed starting in October.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many deals did you open up? Like, because you picked up in the latter part of the year.
I opened as of March. In March, I closed an escrow. And then I didn't close anything. I had nothing until September. So it was dry.
And then you picked up.
And then in September, I closed. October, I closed. December, I closed. And then I still have 2 in escrow right now.
What
So,
changed?
honestly, like, I had a dream about my dad. And long story short, I kept looking at him, and he's like, I'm always here. He tells me, in the dream, and he says, you need to go back to work. I don't like this. I don't like what you're doing. Like, you have so much potential. I don't know why you're wasting it. Like, vete a trabajar. I'll still be here. Go to work. And he goes, work real estate. But like, he was
Wow.
specific about it. But my dad was always big about real estate. He didn't like me being an assistant. He always said I could be bigger, and I could be bigger. But I was always so scared to dip into it. Like, it's life changing. You're strictly on commissions. You don't know, especially when you don't know where to begin. Now I have a foundation. Now I know where to go and how to maneuver. But
I think at the beginning, a lot of people have that problem.
yeah, exactly.
Not
But
everyone, but a lot of people do.
yeah, and then I decided to do it, and then my first year, like, I was training under a friend, and I closed a couple of deals, and I was like, oh. And actually, this friend tells me, you know what now? I get my license and stuff, and he's like, go off on your own. He goes, you're good. He goes, you're good. Don't stay under me. Like, go off on your own. You can do it. And I took it personal, because I was like, oh, is there something I did? Because
Oh, you
the
took a personal thing.
insecurities,
Okay, got it.
insecurities, I was like, is
You
there
didn't take it
something
in-
I did wrong? Is there something like he doesn't want to work with me anymore? Like, what happened here? So, but then I was like, okay, I guess I called an old friend up that I used to work with in real estate when I was a receptionist. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm with this company. And I said, oh, okay, cool. Like, let me go hang up my license there. And I just kind of hung it. And then I started talking to builders and stuff like that. And I got in with one of the builders, and it just kept going. It kept,
They can never stop.
like, it never stopped. And it was funny because, again, you made a comment like, oh, she's never in the office. That's what my broker used to say. I know when I see Diana in the office, it's because she's picking up a check.
Yeah.
She performs more than my full-timers. And he used to say it in the meetings, and he said, I call her my secret agent. Like, oh, she's my little secret agent that comes in here, picks up checks, and just goes out there, and she just keeps performing.
Or
So
or you'll call me now and like, can you pick up my check?
yeah, call you. You don't do it, but I mean, still call you, hoping that you would.
I'll go cash that.
Yeah.
Diana, we're buying Dodger tickets with this money.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, you're a season ticket holder. But yeah, that's how I got started. And then from there, a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, asking me questions," and they're like, "Yeah, we're looking to sell," and I'm like, "Oh, well, do you want to meet up?" And they're like, "Oh, you sell in the LA area?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of
Oh,
course, I sell all over the place." And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know. We thought you were strictly like in an empire." And that's when I made the switch and decided to come to LA office because I wanted the name behind it of, hey, you know what? I service LA, Inland Empire,
got
San
it.
Diego County, and all over California. I sold one last year in Sacramento. So yeah, it's we're California realtors.
Yeah, we are. I
We
just
do it.
ran the Sacramento Marathon.
Here we go about running again.
Well, I just had
right?
to throw it in there, so we threw something else in there.
Oh my God. You know what?
I had to. It's my opening, right? A little.
Put Andres over here. I'm done talking to you.
Um, you were raised where?
I was raised in Linwood.
Lingwood.
Yeah. I was born, we're mostly in LA, but going to school and everything, it was in Linwood.
Lingwood.
Yeah. But then I moved in high school, I moved over to Norco, which my mom straight out moved me from the ghetto, to the country, but it was like two different, completely night and day. So,
Is that where you told me that people will go to high school in a horse?
yeah.
Now that's trippy.
Yeah.
I
It was different. But I still feel like my roots, I don't go back and say, "Oh, like Norco has a piece of me," right? Like there was a foundation that I built there. My best friend, I met her there, you know what I mean? Like we've been friends forever, but there was something about Linwood that I think not just me, but even reconnecting with all my friends, it shaped us in some sort of way that I don't think I could have ever been shaped living in Linwood, like living in Norco like that. I look at
Was
my brother, my little brother. He was raised in Norco, and it's just two different dynamics of on the outputs of life of, what you see, what
the point of I
yeah,
understand what
we
you're saying.
were in Linwood during the riots. We were in Linwood during all that stuff. So we saw a lot.
I remember the riots.
Yeah.
Um, culture, was it a shock?
It was definitely. I think that's the first time I ever experienced depression, and I didn't know it. Yeah, if I'm being honest,
Wow.
it was a culture shock.
I could just imagine on the music aspect.
You know what though?
Or what did they have?
That is one thing that I do thank the move for because I'm very diverse with my music. I love country music. I love rock. I love all kinds of music. And a lot of it was because I was exposed to it a little bit more
Yeah.
when I moved out there.
That's I think that's when I always talk about. I love music. Music has there's no color to it.
No.
There's just music, right?
Yeah,
It
it's just
speaks to
music.
everyone. As I got older, I was able to now love more of the music
Yeah.
on other extremes. But growing up, I mean, everyone knows. I mean, I now make fun of myself, but I thought Chalino was the best. Still think he's probably. I call him an icon, right? Still was like, no, he's not. But as you get older, right, you start
Yeah.
diversity when it comes to music. What was your first like music that you weren't used to listening growing up in England? What was you remember, like, was it
Like
country?
moving to Norco?
Yeah.
There's this band, I don't know if you know, and they used to play it like hardcore over there. It was called Slipknot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like when I first heard it, I'm like, what the is this? Like, and then I ended up liking one of the songs, right? And I still have the CD because I bought
Really?
it. Yeah, but I was kind of like, what in the hell? Like,
That's culture clash.
yeah, it was.
You know what it was for me? And people don't believe me. It was and it wasn't big. And there's three of my friends that are, if we were to ask them, they experienced the same thing. We went to Adams right there in LA, John Adams, right? So when we were graduating, you had an option to go to Manual Arts or Jefferson High School.
Uh-huh.
I don't know whose bright idea was it. Let's go to Roosevelt, and that's in East LA.
Uh-huh.
Or they say Boyle Heights.
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference. I still don't understand the difference, but there is a culture there. And so we went, and that was the first time I could see the Chicanos, like, Chicanos, and I don't. A lot of people don't talk about that, but they would call us the South Central boys, and we're like, well, it's just the bridge.
It's a difference.
And it was a huge difference. That's
Yeah.
when I knew more people were into Guns N' Roses,
Yeah.
Nirvana. Give me another band. Metallica.
Yeah. Guns N' Roses, I was exposed to in Linwood, believe it or not. It was my first video that I saw on MTV.
Really?
And I still remember the
Which one?
casket where the November Rain. They're carrying the
That's a
casket
sick
into the
song.
church.
Yeah. See, I was. There were some that liked Guns N' Roses, but remember, in my era, it was like Chalino's all in, Banda's all in, and rap. And that, to me, my first, to me, the most. I still remember my first song I heard was "Dope Man" with NWA. So I grew up with that.
Yeah.
So when you go into, you hear a lot of rock, and then you start seeing people like all in rock. They only speak English. They don't speak a lot of like the No Sabo kids.
Yeah.
That's what I experienced back then. So I could just imagine what it was going all the way to Norco.
Yeah. It was almost like, it was sad because it was almost like I was embarrassed to speak Spanish.
Oh, you went through that too?
Yeah, well, the thing was, my very first day, I get there, right? And I was in French over here in high school, right? I took French because the hell do I need Spanish for? Because I already know it, yeah. So I was like, oh, but they started school like 3 weeks before us. So I went to school 2 weeks in Linwood High. And then I go over there.
Got it.
I'm 5 weeks behind. You know what I mean? So I got there and they're over there. I was behind. And it was like, oh, okay, well. So I switched out to Spanish. But they're calling roll. And they said, oh, we have a new person here. And they called Diana Mendez, right? And the girl in front of me goes, oh, great. Another Mexican in our school. Yeah. But here's a catch, right? She's white, so she thinks. But her name was Vanessa Perez. And I was like, the fuck? And I remember saying, I was a ghetto ass kid. So I was like, bitch, your last name is Perez. Don't be looking at me. Like I leaned over and said it to her in her ear, like, don't come over here like
Someone's
coming at me.
Someone's going to watch this podcast
yeah.
and gonna
I'm
reply
sure
on
they
our
still
messages.
know her. Like
That's me.
yeah. Yeah. And I was just like, and that was my first day. So that set the tone for me. Like, wait, what the hell,
You're about to get kicked out. Go back to Linwood.
Pretty much, yeah. So I was like, let me go. Let me just switch out to Spanish class. I went to Spanish class. There was even more white people in there, but yeah, then.
Like, you were the plug when it came to passing the test.
Yeah, well, yeah. Actually, that's how me and my best friend became best friends.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, damn it! You were the plug, huh?
Yeah. So that's where I learned how to write in all caps. So I used to write in all caps and pass her, and her last name was Morris. So when we sat alphabetical, they always sat her behind me because it was Mendez Morris, right?
Yeah.
So then I would pass the test, and sure enough.
I wonder how people cheat nowadays on
I have no idea.
tests with technology. Yeah. You know, Bern? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
AI.
My first experience when it came to that, they took us camping. I don't remember where. And I remember which I know why they do this, they separate and they put you in other schools, like in a circle.
Yeah.
I was only Latino. And they set us in this big circle, and as everyone's saying their name, I'm looking at the circle, I'm like, yeah, I don't fit here. And then obviously, what's your name? I'm like, Jesus.
Jesse.
Yeah, it's like, I always say, I'm like, Jesus Guerra, 5'6", brown eyes. I fit the description.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was a girl, I always remember, I don't know, I just remember, oh, you speak Spanish. And I felt like so out of place. Like, get me out of here. And I'm like, yeah. And then like, oh, where are you from? We're just going. I'm like, oh, LA. And they're like, oh, he's from LA. And I guess somehow all those kids knew each other,
Yeah.
or they were going to similar schools, but we were the only school that came from the LAUSD, and we went camping out there.
Mm.
And yeah, it felt pretty awkward for me.
Yeah.
You know, but eventually it's like you said, they set the tone, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to everyone. And you're here anyways for a full week.
Yeah.
And so it was fun. It was my first experience, but that was my experience. Like saying my name, it's like Jesus. At least Diana doesn't sound so like Jesus.
Yeah.
I think if your name was Maria, Guadalupe, one of those,
Yeah.
that's like a Jesus for me.
Yeah.
Dodgers won. Where were you at?
I was at a friend's house. At a friend's house that day. She actually filmed it. It was pretty cool. But
Did she film you guys? The reactions?
yeah, the reaction. So she filmed the reaction, and I remember looking back at it, and I was like, I felt so lonely, because I was kind of sitting in the back, and as I'm sitting back there, like, they win, right? And I put my hands up, and I'm just like all I could think of was, man, I wish my dad was here. I wish I could hug him, like they did it. They did it. He saw the 2020, but everybody talked crap about the 2020. So yeah, and I regret not being with him the 2021 too. I was at my cousin's house, but I was living there, so I had just gotten off of work, so it just kind of was home, but yeah, like I was like, man, I would have loved. I would have. To be honest, and it was against the Yankees. Me and my dad have always talked about going to. He always said, you should go to New York. I've never been to New York. And I was like, why? He goes, I don't know, because you should.
We did talk about that.
Yeah. So he's like, you should go to New York. So the fact that it was against the Yankees and stuff, like, I know I would have done everything in my power for us to go to the World Series game in New York with my dad. So it hit me a little bit different. Yeah. It was like a bittersweet. Like, I wish I was there to hug my dad, and show him. Like, I think I even posted a story on Instagram just of all the memories that we had together at Dodger. Yeah.
I think that hit me with Fernando.
Yes.
When Fernando passed, I think someone sent me a message. I think it was Steph. I don't remember who. That hit me. Like, oh, like
that's
part
your
of me. Because I was, not to mention, if you ever see my father's pictures, I've always said my father, they both look they look very similar.
I saw that too.
And so when I saw him, part of me felt like, even though I never met Valenzuela, but part of me felt like that's probably the closest person I've met that looked like my father.
Mm-hmm.
So when he passed away, that's how I took it. Like, like it just hit. Like, it was crazy, because then you start seeing I think you went to film. Bern went to film the mariachi when they honored him before the World Series, and I know he invited me, and part of me wanted to go, but part of me didn't. Like, I didn't want to. I
get it,
because it will take me back to my flashbacks. Like, nah, I don't want to be part of. I don't know if you ever felt that. Like,
well, it's funny because I took my dad to the World Series, right? He hadn't been to Dodger Stadium in like 20 years, and that's where real estate, the Dodgers and my dad all connect, right? Because of real estate, I was making this money that I've never made before, right? It was. I'm
glad you're talking about, because I was going to ask you, what's been the most gratifying thing that comes out of real estate, but now you're talking about it.
It's what it did for my family, like for my dad mostly. You know what I mean? The memories that were created with my dad through real estate were just something that I will never regret, and I think that's why I have such a passion for it. And I always tell people, like, there's this agent that I recently worked with, and we were talking about the dream team and how we're going to get my client to this house, and she deserves it. Kind of give him a little bit of a background, right? And then I said, he goes, I like you. He goes, I go, it's all about the people. And he said, people before profit. And it's
Say
true.
That again,
people before profit. And I've always put my clients first before profit. You know what I mean? Especially with the concessions and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I could turn around and charge more. But if I could just if I see a family that really just needs it and they want to go into, that's why the baskets that I give, they're so personal too, because it's everything. You have some clients, and I'm jumping around here, but you have some clients that you'll show for 6 months, right? And then they find the home. And then you have some clients that I've shown a weekend, and it's like we go into escrow, right? So you get to know them. Sometimes most of my clients, I know a little bit of background with them, even through the pre-qualifying process and all that. But there was this one particular client that said, I don't care if we have to eat maruchan for a month, we're getting this house, right? And then every house we went to, the wife was like, this is perfect for a fire pit. This is perfect for a fire pit. On one of the houses we were leaving, they had a fire pit that said free outside, and she put it in the back of her car because she saw I'm taking my fire pit. Wow. And I'm like, don't take that. She's like, yeah, it's free. Well, but she ended up giving it to her mom, right? So that was kind of cool. But I gave her, when their closing gift came around, I gave them a fire pit, like a brand new one, and I threw a bunch of maruchans in there. And I thought it was the funniest thing, you know? So it becomes more of a personal thing. It's not a paycheck. It's yeah. People before my paycheck, honestly. Yeah.
What's more gratifying, when you meet them or when you close escrow?
When I close escrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I meet them, it's nice. It's like a
kumbaya moment.
Yes, like, oh, these people trust me. Like, I better not mess it up, you know. So it's like the pressure that comes on me and the hype of it all, right? But when I give them those keys, like that very moment, and I think because I bought my first home, so I know what I felt.
Yeah.
When I give them those keys, and if I can make that moment just a little bit special for them.
The touch.
Yeah, a little touch of what they're going to remember for the rest of their life. Like, I'm going to go the extra mile and I'm going to do it.
And clients will always remember that.
Yeah.
There was a crazy transaction we had once during Thanksgiving. And it was, without getting too into it, but the selling agent left them, literally abandoned them.
Yeah.
We had to take over and do that. We could have canceled them, kept their money. And I remember you have to be very careful what hat you're wearing. Are we just being the listing agent and saying, screw you?
Yeah.
Are we just, like you said, people over profit?
Yeah. Because
someone else is still going to get paid without them doing their job.
Yeah.
In the agent's perspective, it's, what are we doing? So now here I come in, like, if we go management, then yeah, cancel. We keep office wins. And I think that's when people ask me, what do you love managing and coaching so much? Because there's different layers when it comes to real estate. And I remember speaking to that family, and they never heard from their agent since they opened escrow. But the paperwork somehow was given to us.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was a TC. Then it turned out the TC never seen the agent ever again. Anyways, they were living in like an hotel for like 3 weeks. We didn't know this. So I could have canceled. Imagine now you have a buyer's family. The buyers are been in an hotel, not knowing what's going to happen. We're about to close it. We're about to cancel them. They're homeless.
Yeah.
And we closed escrow. We had to extend escrow. We had to talk to the sellers. And I remember but see, that's the moment for me as coaching. I remember like, okay, I usually let the agents come, like, no, I'm going on this one.
Yeah.
And when we turn the keys in and you see the family, it's, they're very grateful. They just wanted to get in. I'm like, hey, well, there's still no electricity. We have to turn it on until tomorrow.
Yeah.
No. They went and they slept in the dark. And I'm like, we tried calling the company, but they won't turn it. It was around Christmas time when they moved in. Right? And they had no water. They just want somewhere to sleep in. But those are the gratifying moments when it comes to this. Give me 1 second. Pause it, maybe. Yeah, you could.
Sorry. It's going to cover face stuff so we won't have issues. Hello.
You could come through there.
It's gonna be tough. Unless you want to wrap it up.
Do you fit through there? Do you fit through there?
Yeah, you could fit through there.
Why? I gotta prep stuff before I need to get in there, so I don't want to. I don't have to do anything yet.
Can you give us like 15 minutes?
Oh, you got.
Oh.
100%. Sorry to get 45. I said like you guys need time.
Yeah, we got
It's already
15
been
minutes.
45.
Perfect. It was 45 minutes in there. Yeah.
That's why we have 15 minutes.
Another one for 30.
30s. We'll wrap it up right now. We'll start wrapping. Don't worry. I got nothing to do all day. So
He's all I do.
you do?
Talk more about real estate. You only talked about it once.
Yeah, we'll get back into it. We're wrapping it. Well, this is real estate. So, anyways, we'll take it out forward. And that's I remember it was around Christmas time,
Yeah.
and you will always remember those moments because it's so touchy.
Yeah.
And the family, the guys were very grateful and thankful to us. And then the other agent randomly calls one day like, "Hey, so when are we doing the final walkthrough?" We had already closed the transaction a week ago.
Oh, jeez.
And so that's what I like to say, welcome to the dark side.
Yeah.
When I tell people, oh, you want to do real estate?
Yeah.
Welcome to the dark side.
And that's the thing. They don't see a lot of what goes on in the background. You know what I mean? Like, but it also depends on what content we're posting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I show the listing, I show the giving keys, I show the showing property, and it's like, what? I gotta go show a few houses, and then I gotta. But you don't see all the hiccups and everything that comes through it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the solar's not getting transferred, or they didn't qualify for the solar after all. Now we gotta figure that out.
Those are headaches.
I've had that happen too, you know, and then even with my sellers, like my sellers moved out and they were like, I'm sorry, we didn't have time to like clean out the garage. So now I'm calling my guys and I'm just like, luckily I do have a team behind me that like, oh, contractors, this and that, right? That I outsource. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Can you come? I need you here. I won't be able to be there till midnight, Diana. I'm like, okay, well, there I am at midnight, you know, at this empty house with no electricity, no nothing, helping clean out trash at the same time. And it's like, that's a lot of stuff that people don't see.
Yeah.
Like all the headaches and stuff that you gotta do for your sellers, for your buyers and stuff like that. So
They don't see what agents go through.
yeah,
How many times people say no to you,
yeah,
the rejection.
the rejection is
And then there's times where you have to work when everyone else is hanging around.
yeah,
Like some people do have to work during the holidays.
yeah,
But it's gratifying. Like it goes back
It
to what
is.
you said. You enjoyed the time with your father.
Yeah.
You enjoyed the time you were able to go to Dodger games, World Series, and those I think those you work so hard to live those moments. But now I'm gonna tell you straight out. I'm 2025. You better go to you better go to Yankee Stadium. It's a vibe, and especially this coming year because you take your Dodger hat. They can't talk crap to us.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a lot of bragging rights. So, are you? Because I'm putting you on blast here. I'm holding you accountable. Diana needs to be in New York 2025. Will you circle a day just to go as a visitor?
yeah. I'll do it.
Okay. You better go to a Yankee game.
I'll go.
with
go.
with their Dodger gear. It's a vibe. We went there. I was able to experience that.
Yeah,
And now when I went Dodgered out.
yeah,
It was a vibe. They were very nice to us. Like, oh, you guys are from LA. We came
Yeah.
out in the jumbotron,
Oh, really?
and even we're in our Dodger gear. We're
Yeah.
very nice. I think you have to go. Think if you get to go, once you go, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Where I have a passion. I have a passion for my dad. I have a passion for the Dodgers. I have a passion for real estate. But I think taking it back to real estate, that's where my passion comes from. Because real estate, how could you not be passionate about something that has given you a lifestyle that you thought you could only dream of?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's really what it's given me. It's a lifestyle, the traveling, the being able to host my family on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, you know. I live by myself. I don't have kids. I don't have any of that. But to be able to put like smiles
smile.
on other people's faces because of the hard work you did, like that's a gift within itself.
And
know
you
what I
add
mean?
to that because you have some there's an extra layer. It's going back to your father that he believed in you
Yeah,
and he planted that seed.
yeah,
And so it's gratifying when you know that and when you feel accomplished.
yeah,
Because there's times I'm sure you could relate to this, right? It's what if, or what could have they said, or what would they think? Because I think I posted that not too long ago, and
yeah,
those are your moments where I use that as instead of being down on myself, I'm like, okay, knowing him, the little I got to meet my father, right?
Yeah.
He probably would expect it more.
Yeah.
But I don't know that as much as the way you had a relationship with your father.
Yeah.
And it goes to a lot of people out there, not just your father, right? Siblings, mothers, brothers,
Yeah.
sisters, and there's or a good friend of yours. I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah.
And some people handle the emotions different. I just happened to kind of challenge myself. Like, knowing him, he probably would have just been like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Like, well, we came to this country to work, so
Yeah.
I don't know. How would you take that? How have you taken that? Yes, is that what sparks you up to do better?
My dad?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think he's always expected. He always told me before he passed away. I remember he sat me on the table and he said, "What are you going to do the day I die?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Cry." Like, you know, and I thought it was just like a joke. He goes, "No, you're going to work. You're going to continue to work because my bills died." He said, "I died, not your bills." He goes, "So
Damn.
you continue to work." He goes, "I'm dead. What's there to do?" He goes, "You just keep working." And I think that's why I produced so much that year, because there was just something in me that said I just had to keep working. I had to keep working. And then boom, one real estate deal, then another real estate deal, then another real estate deal. And I was literally just piling up checks. I had checks that I wasn't even cashing, you know what I mean? Like, but it was just because I just had to work. I wasn't worried about cashing a check at this moment. I just had to keep working. But then I became like a machine. And that's, like I told you, people before profit, that's not who I wanted to be. I didn't want to be like, oh, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. No, I wanted to like build that personal relationship with my client. I want to really pay attention to their needs and what they want in a home and be able to put them in there. And I think that's where I took a step back from real estate, because I said, my heart's not in it, and I'm not going to put a client through it
You
if
mentioned
my
that to
heart's
me.
not in it,
Yeah.
you know? And it's not fair to my client. It's not fair to me. And a lot of people are like, well, if you don't do it, someone else is, and their heart might not be in it. And I said, yeah, you're possibly right, but I can't live with myself like that. And that's where the difference comes. You know what I mean?
There's something I said this to Steph. Something happened. And I said, people could project what they want. I know the truth. I just want to know when I go home, or wherever I'm staying at, I go to sleep with a clean conscience.
Yes,
And as long as that's clean on my end, it don't matter what anyone else thinks.
And nobody else is going to
And no one else will ever know.
Yep.
Because like you said, someone else is going to do it, or someone. Well, let them. If you're
Yeah.
if you're going to do that and cut corners, hey, be you.
Yeah.
Who am I to judge, right?
Yeah.
But my conscience, and I heard that from Dr. Dre,
Hmm.
because they asked him about a question about how he left everything with Death Row,
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, I didn't take any, I didn't take the money I was supposed to, but what I did take with me was my clean conscience.
Yeah.
And that always stuck to me when I watched that interview. I'm like, oh, because whenever he left Death Row, they interviewed him. This is probably before I even started real estate.
Yeah.
Now I understand that conversation. It means the world to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you're saying. If you're not in it, then you're not doing, you don't feel right.
Yeah. And everybody asked also, why the move, right? Because you could perform if you're going to perform from any office.
Yeah.
But there was something my dad used to tell me. And he used to always be like, when we would talk, he's like, come here. And he would say, let me polish you. He would always say, you're like a diamond. But you don't shine unless you're constantly polished. And I was like, what the hell? What does that mean, you know? And I met with JJ, and I said, it's just going to be a conversation. Let me see. Maybe I need a change, because that's how I am. When I go through things, I need some type of change. I need something to change. So I thought, let me change this. Maybe I don't need a change. We'll see. Let me just meet with them. So we went to lunch. We're at the sushi place.
That's right.
I was super hungover that day, by the way. I took everything in me to keep it together. And JJ's like,
now we know.
JJ's like, what do you mean you're not going to have a beer? And I was like, that's the last thing I want right now. I just wanted a Coke.
Oh, shoot, I didn't know this.
That's why I wanted a Coke. Yeah, I never told you. Oh, my God. I think I cried on the way to the interview because I was questioning every decision. You know, when you're coming down from like your hangover
Oh,
starting to kick in,
wow.
like
She was going through it,
I was
Burn.
going through it, and I was going through it. So,
Well, I couldn't
anyways,
tell.
no, I know I
No.
tried. I did everything to keep it together. Let me tell you. So
I,
it was bad. It
This
was
is my
probably
first time hearing this.
it was probably the drunkest I've ever been in my life. Yes, the night before. And it
Were
was
you drunk when you showed up to the?
probably I probably still was, to be honest. I was like, oh my god, but
But you had a beer.
I had a beer and that cured me actually. So I was like, damn, thanks,
Oh.
JJ. Like, you know, so we ate sushi and then he's having me eat all this raw
Yeah.
stuff because he's like, do you eat sushi or you eat California rolls, you know? And I was like, dang, he's like calling me out like sushi, right? So
Mhm.
we're eating and he's like, all right. He goes, look. And then I said, you know, yeah, no, I can perform. We talked to commission, whatever. I mean, the split.
Yeah, everything.
And then he said, I said, I could perform. It's just, you know, I'm going through a slump. He goes, you know what you are? He goes, you're a diamond. You just need some polishing. And that right there, I looked at him and it took everything in my power not to cry in front of him. And I just sat there. He goes, come on, mija. And then he called me mija. And after that, I was like, that's when you were like, what the hell just happened when I shook his hand and I said, I'll come sign with you?
Yeah.
And you were just like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah,
That's
because
why.
we never.
No, it was just a conversation.
The whole link up was just a conversation.
But it was, that was it. It was so linked to my dad that it just
Damn.
became like, this is where I need to be. What are the chances? Nobody ever uses that terminology, you know, like, oh, you're just a diamond that needs to be polished. And when JJ said it, I was like, I literally, I remember
It's like
calling-
everything lined up.
everything just lined up.
You were going through the waterworks.
Yeah, everything lined
Emotional.
up. Aside from the
What's that-
hangover,
what's that
everything
meme?
lined up.
Emotional. Emotion. It doesn't apply, but on the way here, she was. And then they make you drink a beer to sober up.
Yeah, and it
So
was
now you're
just-
feeling good.
Yeah, now it's a little more relaxed. And when he said that, I just,
Like, this is it.
this is it.
Nice.
Okay, and it's just been, it's been great. You know what I mean? Like
We've had fun here.
we've had fun.
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
had a lot of fun. He's so smart. You know, I love picking his brain sometimes too. You know,
Yeah.
and it's just that I don't have any regrets.
No, he.
I don't have any regrets. Yeah,
It's fun working with him.
yeah.
I sit next to him, so. Believe me, when they ask me how does it work with him, I'm like, if I talk to them, like really talk to him more than 5 minutes a day, it's probably a lot because he's busy. Obviously, I'm in my lane.
Yeah.
But the times I'm able to, when we do sit, it's always me picking his brain.
Yeah.
We just had lunch not too long ago. Man, we happened to be, I think it was around Christmas time. I said, let's go to lunch. And I think I've only gone to lunch with him once this year,
Yeah.
like by himself.
Yeah.
People, you would think I'm going to lunch with him a lot. No, I'm not.
I wouldn't want to have lunch with you
So-
more than once. Sorry.
That's Diana. And I asked him a lot of questions, straight up,
Yeah.
what I need. And it's like when people say, there's a saying, right? Be ready for what you ask for.
Yeah.
But I tend to believe, I heard this over the 2 weeks ago, is you were born ready to what you asked for. Because we're
Yeah.
God's children. And so I'm asking because I know I want to improve. And I'm not be careful because I'm asking for something in return from someone that's a good seed, right?
Yeah,
Coming from good
exactly.
soil. And it's like you think you're here, need to grow, and now you're either pushing your hair like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's a vibe working with JJ, to say the least.
Yeah.
He's a vibe.
He is.
All right, goals 2025. Talk to me. What are we doing next year?
Well, we're going to Yankee Stadium,
Yeah,
apparently. You know.
I'd
but-
love to go with you. Believe Steph and I were.
Oh,
we
well,
said-
I'm going to Yankee Stadium.
I know you
But
good.
hey, if you want to go,
We
let's
said we're going to go last year. We didn't do a trip, so we got to do one this year.
Yeah, no, you guys are more than welcome. I don't care if I go alone. Like, I think I'm back in that mindset where I want to travel by myself. So,
Nice.
2025, I really just want to be better than 2024, Diana. If I put it in a nutshell, like,
Got it.
I want to be better than who I was the previous year. You know, every year I set these goals and I'm like, oh, I sold 14 or I sold 7 and I want this. But, you know, there's so much that goes into that, which is volume, commission, and
Yeah.
everything else, you know, which you can outrank yourself by selling less and still make more. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Or making more of an impact on a person. So I think, honestly, in a nutshell, not just in real estate, but in life and my other job, you know, I just want to be better than 2024, Diana. I want to be more organized. I want to be more disciplined. I want to be better.
Got it.
That's it.
So it's like the circle of life. You just want to amp everything up.
It's you versus you.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there it is, Diana Mendez, 2025. Can't wait to see your production. Can't wait to see your outlook in life. Can't wait to see you glow again, because you always glow.
No, thank you.
And we got to do sushi again without you having to be with a hangover.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a wrap.